Well, I think we all remember that pretty big snowstorm. That was my birthday.
Okay.
And the boys, Dean Dorman and all those guys, they took me out. I was tied to the chair, and they did a snowball firing squad for my birthday. And it was definitely a little chilly because I was the guy in Gym A just getting pelted with snowballs, and those guys are all in there. They came and grabbed me, and they're all in their parkas and everything.
Welcome to the Courage Never Quits podcast, where members of the West Point class of 1986 tell their stories. I'm your host, Paul LaFontaine. My guest today is Gerry Schwartz, Cullum number 43664. We'll hear about his no pain, all gain cadet philosophy and his different deployments and experiences in the Army Reserves. As always, the views expressed in this podcast are those of the participants and not of West Point, the Army, or any organization, most particularly the company who maintains the Doomsday Plane. Gerry Schwartz, welcome to the podcast.
Paul, thanks for having me. Glad to do this.
You're a Nebraska boy back in Nebraska.
Yes, I am. Dad was an Air Force veteran, KC-135 pilot. Came here when I was 7. Left to go to West Point and take my wife all over the world, and then eventually came back 25 years ago, be closer to my mom when her health was ailing a little bit, and here we are.
How close are you to where you grew up? Because those of us who don't know Nebraska geography might have to get a tutorial as you talk.
I am in the town I grew up in, Omaha, multiple suburbs of Omaha. Papillion is one of those suburbs, and our two boys went to my high school.
You're kidding me. And how was that, going back to your old high school?
Well, it doesn't look like my high school anymore. There's been 2 additions since then,
right.
And all the field turf and everything. And for those of us who spent lots of time in weeds and ripping up our legs and everything playing football, it's a lot nicer now, and sprinkler systems and everything.
But the statue of you out front helps you orient to the place, I imagine.
I know nobody wants to claim me.
So growing up in Nebraska, in that town, talk about what was it about West Point? Your father in the Air Force, obviously. What was it about West Point that caught your eye?
Well, so, again, Dad, career service, KC-135 pilot. My sister actually was a recruited track athlete to West Point. So we all drove in the station wagon to take my sister to school. And went through our day and just fell in love with everything that happened on our day. I had the catalog on the way back, and I read the thing, and really there was nowhere else I wanted to go.
And what class was she?
She would have been 83. I think she lasted about 5 weeks.
Okay.
I mean, like I said, she was a track athlete. I don't know that she necessarily knew what she was getting into.
Right.
And we got the call.
You were early in the high school career when you actually went back there, and early in your high school career when you went back there.
Actually, I was in ninth grade, I think, when she went. So
I think we all saw that same catalog. I could picture it in my mind. It's probably because it was basically one catalog, and like today with all the media, right?
All those good-looking 70s pictures and everything.
And everything there was black and white. And then when we got there, it actually was still black and white.
Yes.
Cool. So what were you known for in high school? What was it that you kind of presented as your strengths in high school to the academy?
I did, decent grades, obviously, football, basketball, and then I was in the swing choir, which obviously lent itself well to getting into the glee club once I got to school. So.
Yeah. So good grades, choir. How about sports? Any sports or local activities?
Yeah, football and basketball. I was a 2-year letterman football, 1-year basketball. Interesting how letters go now. I mean, academics and band and jazz band and all this other stuff. And obviously, certainly, when we were coming up, it was just pretty much varsity athletics. So
how did you prepare for the academy once you got in? Did you were you like some of us who sat and learned how to shine shoes from your dad, or did you just kind of hit it cold?
I just kind of hit it cold. I mean, obviously, I got to see what happened on day one. Certainly not from the back side, but from the front side. So I had a little bit of an expectation, but no real prep. I mean, we went to Air Force clothing sales and got my low quarters, which is interesting because the only two pair of black shoes that I still own are the ones I wore in and the ones that they gave us
Really?
the next
How are they
day.
looking? Are they in good shape?
They look good. They look good. I, I had an affinity for spit shining and interesting. Have spit shine my son, our oldest son, his brown shoes, for AGSU when he got commissioned, and then I actually did a class for our youngest son in his RTC seniors. Drove to St. Louis and did a little spit shine class, and so they were all looking real good in May this year when they commissioned.
You never lose the basic skills.
No. And then poor Travis, our older kid, he's in the 82nd, so he has a pair of brown jump boots, black jump boots, and then obviously they don't make Corfram brown shoes yet, so his low quarters for the AGSU are spit shine, and then obviously both of his jump
There you
boots.
go. So two sons. Say again the ages.
So Travis is 26 and Matthew's 22. Okay. Travis is now on the division staff at the 82nd as the electronic warfare officer on staff. Okay. He just finished up as an electronic warfare platoon leader. He's cyber, and then Matthew went cyber also, and he's leaving here next on Monday to go to his basic course at Fort Gordon, now Fort Eisenhower.
Okay, there you go. Two good electronic warfare. I mean, electronic warfare is back in style, so they're in the fashionable end of the Army now.
I was going to say, after what's been going on today, I had to send that to my son. It's like, wow, you want to talk electronic warfare? Take out a bunch of terrorists with their pagers and their
how about that?
Their walkie-talkie.
I was an electronic warfare officer many years ago, and they phased it out basically, and now it's back in. I mean, yes, I'm like the old pair of boots that's back in style. Those of us who are like.
We'll have to get you to brag so you can see all the new cool stuff. Okay. I mean, he just was out in the field last week with the new vehicle with all the equipment on it. He's got a lot of an opinion on the equipment, and people are listening to him.
Good.
So
good stuff. What so Beast Barracks? How'd you take it? You had a little bit of exposure through your father's knowledge, and you had a little bit of that context. How did it hit you?
So Steve Carden was my roommate, and I think we survived. Definitely, just try to learn from other people's mistakes and don't keep making them. I think I did all right. Love those stories. Terry Callahan was in our B squad, and Terry was kind of a football player, core squad kind of guy, and we'd be racing into that room and making sure everything was good to go, and love that guy. He's a good dude.
Now, where'd you start out in terms of plebe company? I know you ended up in H2, but
I was in A3 as a plebe. Yep, and so Doug Black was my roommate for the first part of freshman year. So I got to live with all of the mystique or the stories with Doug, getting cut and then playing intramural football. And he was he was a beast. Salado, Texas. I remember all the stories that he used to tell. He's got some good stories, but enjoyed being his roommate. And then Matt Russo was my roommate second semester.
That's great. And then how was A3 in terms of being in a plebe company? Because all the companies had their own quality or their own kind of Hayes coefficient. What was your experience there?
A3 was pretty good. We ended up with Trish Gray and I can't remember the other gal. They were our assistant squad leaders, so we did definitely get a little lighter hand listening to music and stuff, doing our plebe knowledge going in there. But yeah, there were definitely some hazes and pretty easy. I mean, not easy as in not having an experience, but nothing right, crazy. Right. No A1, no B1, none of that stuff.
Some of the companies prided themselves on misery. A3 to
exactly
the product, right? Now, did you develop a nickname?
Yeah,
because I did look at your howitzer and I didn't see no nickname jumped out, and it doesn't mean much. But what did people call you back then?
No, so in A3, no, but once we got to H2, there was a lot of us that were taking German. So, I was Herr Jer and Mick Haydack, and some of those guys, all the hair this, hair that. So it was.
I was also in German. We probably were either in a class or a class next to each other. I was so miserable in that class that I didn't really clock who was in the room with me. So if we were, I apologize.
Yeah, I was in with Steve Voss and Mark Lee and Kirk Gutierrez and all those guys who had German parents, and it's like, you guys are skating, man. It's like, how is this fair that you spoke this at home?
You're grading us on a curve, and you're killing me, man.
Exactly.
Oh, it's too good. And so hitting H2 as let's go back to plebe year. Do you have any vivid memories of kind of gaffes or craziness, or was it pretty laid back?
Well, I think we all remember that pretty big snowstorm. That was my birthday.
Okay.
And the boys, Dean Dorman and all those guys, they took me out. I was tied to the chair, and they did a snowball firing squad for my birthday. And it was definitely a little chilly because I was the guy in Gym A just getting pelted with snowballs, and those guys are all in there. They came and grabbed me, and they're all in their parkas and everything. So, but I think that's probably the biggest memory. And then also, vividly remember being in our room, because obviously we weren't allowed in the day rooms when Houston beat Georgetown for the basketball championship, and you could hear all the upperclassmen screaming down in the basement in the day rooms as Houston won.
There you go. Well, pelting each other with snowballs in that way we had an odd way of showing affection back then. That was it.
Absolutely.
The sign you were well regarded. You were in the chair getting crushed with snow. And how was it H2 in terms of transitioning over there? Was that a similarly styled company, or what was your experience?
I think we tried to turn up the heat a little bit. Of course, we were in Pershing right across from A1, so certainly you couldn't be too lax or anything. But I think the plebes, our sophomore, junior, senior year, they all got an experience. Definitely remember senior year when PJ Gross was the honor captain, sending plebes over across the way to Eisenhower to the honor hallway, and you need to go see Cadet Gross now during Reorgi week. So had a bunch of people lost and not too happy.
Yeah. You were in the Glee Club, so that started yearling year. Is that, if I look at the
absolutely,
yeah.
Started with a couple of guys in the company. Dave Harmon was originally in the club, and then he eventually got out. Howard Johnston, good friend of mine from I2, he was in the club. Phil Keller from our company was in the club. So it was always the Wednesday night exodus over to can't remember where Boodler's was. Can't remember the name of that building, but that's where the Glee Club rehearsal room was, and rehearsing. And then a lot of trips, a lot of great trips.
Yeah. Was the Glee Club something you'd always had your eye on, or when you got there, it was just something that was an opportunity?
No, I was in the Catholic Chapel Choir for plebe year. Just anything to sing. Really enjoyed it. But yeah, I wanted to be in the Glee Club.
Good for you. All right, and the trips. I just talked to Ted Cummings, so I'm coming off another Glee Club discussion just recently. So you guys got out and got around quite a bit. What were some of the most memorable for you?
I think junior year, the Hawaii trip for spring break was pretty awesome, and then the senior year we flew into Houston, and then we drove on a bus from Houston down to Florida. So we just kept doing stops along the way, and driving at night, and then sleeping a little bit, and then doing a concert, and then getting back in the bus and driving at night. That one, ton of great trips, but certainly the Hawaii trip for spring break, junior year.
And was the Glee Club, I don't want to say a party atmosphere, was it a lighthearted atmosphere, or was everyone kind of down to business? Or you hear about some of these, like the 150s team is, it's as much about craziness on the road as anything. How was it on the road? Was it a crazy experience, or was everybody kind of serious?
No, it was very lighthearted, trying not to get in trouble. Certainly some stories, going to sponsor families and stuff like that. And, funny you mentioned Ted, but I'll leave that one alone. Ted was the president. I was the vice president, so we hung out a lot.
Now, what was your branch? What was not branch, but what was your course of study?
Double language, German and Spanish.
Oh, really?
So mostly German, and then I took 1 year of Spanish. But I worked my way through that. I did okay.
And why did you? What attracted you to that course of study? That's pretty intense. I mean, we all had to take languages, obviously, but did you have any previous experience with it?
Yeah, I did German in high school, and then obviously with a name like Schwartz, certainly wanted to get into that. I mean, I'll admit, and I'm sure Steve Whitmarsh, Jim Morris, those guys will all say I certainly could have applied myself a lot better. Was not about to do a math science engineering anything because that just sounded too hard. So humanities, public affairs, language, something that I had a little bit of propensity for, but I got a 2.49 and it's all mine.
Oh, hey, so. You know what? And in the long run, it seems to work out for you. What is your howitzer entry semi-accurate? Because some people I actually bring it up and they go, "Oh no, they bet none of it's true." But I mean, does it capture the essence of how you were there?
Oh yeah.
One of the things that Dave wrote in that piece was he claims if you never said it, you had the motto "No pain, all gain."
Yeah, I like I said, I didn't really apply myself too much. So
right.
Stories of those guys getting ready for term ends and, hey man, we're going to do a study group, and I'd be racking and it's like, you want to come? It's like, yeah, no, I'm good. So. And
then discipline, did you area tours, lots of them, none of them, some of them? What was the take?
I'm a century man.
You're a century man. All right. Okay. Well, there you go.
Talk about that. Yeah. So everything up until senior year, little of this, little of that, whatever, sitting at 44 hours. So the story is, so we had, obviously as seniors, we had first class privileges on Fridays. And there was a junior, Todd Friesman, who was in some impossible engineering major. And so Bill Carney, straight as an arrow, Bill Carney, who maybe had 4 demerits his entire cadet career, he and I jumped in the Fiat, Fiat, and we grabbed Todd Friesman and had him unmark his card, and we drove to the Sopwith Camel Pub in Nanuet, New York, and had a couple beers, and then drove back. And some of his classmates, Todd Friesman's classmates, obviously saw that he wasn't there and knew that he was on academic probation and,
right.
He should be studying and whatever. And this was, for, month and a half out from graduation. And so there was a little anonymous note to the TAC. And
the old anonymous note to the TAC trick.
Yeah. So Kurt Gutierrez was the company commander. Rich McAdams was the first sergeant. These juniors were going and talking to them and, hey, we can't let this go. And so those guys are like, look, man, these guys probably aren't going to graduate if they get written up. So, we'll give them every, guard detail we can, from here on out, but we're not going to write them up. So then the anonymous note goes in. And so because they knew our TAC, so Kurt and Rich both got hit also. So we all 4 got 70 hours for that. And
a month and a half before graduation.
Walked on graduation week. So this is a long story, but it's good.
It's a good one.
Walked on graduation week. Hilarious stuff. We were playing Wheel of Fortune, back when people would go shopping after they would win and stuff like that. You just walk back and forth and can I have an A? No, there's no A. And you just going back and forth. The seniors, we were allowed to walk 10 hours and all the underclassmen only 7. So at night, it was just us. And so Jim Morris would always he'd turn the lights off in his room, put a speaker out and would play Led Zeppelin in the evening for the seniors that were walking. We went into Lee Garner's room, and I think it was Sam Ryder picked up the phone and called Central Guard Room and said, "This is Captain whoever, from the commandant's office. And do you guys realize that it's heat cap whatever, and you need to give those guys more of a break?" And the next hour, sure enough, it was a scream. 70 hours, and then I got off 3 hours before the commandant's reception on Sunday
Really?
during graduation week. And I go through the receiving line, see General Boylan. We were in dress gray over white, and General Boylan's like, "Hey, Mr. Schwartz, where's your rank?" It's like, "Sir, this is my rank."
Because for the kids at home, if you had a major slug, you lost your rank, basically. But
Absolutely, first private.
There you go. Fantastic. But you graduated.
I did.
So at what point did you know armor was it?
No, when we went to TCAT, man, it was like there's nothing else I want to do. I mean, glasses at the time. I've had LASIK since then, so certainly, flying wasn't anything for me. But pretty high tech, and even in an M60, I thought that was pretty cool. So that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah, there you go. Where were you in terms of your post selection? How did that turn out? What you wanted to be, or?
Yeah, I went to Fort Riley. I was the first one actually in the class to take it, close to home. Good friend of mine. He was still at Kansas State, and his soon-to-be fiance. So knew I would have a little bit of a social scene there. Certainly not up with Mike or Ulrich or any of those guys with any kind of Germany choices. But as I used to tell lieutenants, it's like, hey, when it comes to West Pointers, it's like that first assignment, great, but then you get the opportunity to go command, when those guys did their first assignment. So I was able to get to second cav on my second assignment, but then, with the drawdown and things like that, I wasn't able to command in second cav, but I was able to command in third ID.
Okay, all right. Now you have just looking at your background, you have 30 years of service, but it looks like you had some civilian job in there. How did that work? How did you structure your career? Just bring us up to speed on that.
Well, so, and it's something I just wanted to get into. I really, with this interview, I really appreciate our class. I mean, there's been some stuff in my life that I've had to go through and have been able to reach out and lean on people, and just amazing. So, I commanded in Germany, and our brigade commander, as I'm sure you recall, the old senior rater profile, he would do a quarterly, we'd do a, professional reading. We'd have to do, briefings on this professional reading, and he would brief his senior rater profile. And so he had a 3-block senior rater profile. Hey, in command, if you got a 1 block, then you're going to go to resident CGSC. You should be battalion commander. 2-block, you have a really good chance of resident CGSC and a good chance of battalion commander. 3-block center mass. We'll roll the dice and see how things go. So I leave with a 2-block company command. And so I'm thinking, hey, life's great. And head off to my functional area assignment, ORSA, which was interesting, as they used to say at Fort Lee. ORSA's a West Point heavy functional area, and we like it that way. Because all the math involved, and funny that I'm a Lean Six Sigma black belt now, and basically all some of the same stuff. But while I'm there, I'm get a hold of Armor Branch, and they hey man, you're at risk. I go, what are you talking about? I'm at risk. I had a above center mass company command. No. Yeah. Everybody else in the Army has gone to 1-block center and mass. So with a 2-block company command, you're below center mass, and you're like, how the hell are we supposed to know that? The brigade commander's doing his thing, and it sounds like he's managing his profile, but we don't know what everybody else is doing. So, obviously we get to the point where I got passed in the primary zone because I was below center mass, and, ended up taking special separation benefit and getting out, being able to call Jody Petery. He was at Armor Branch at the time as an assignments officer. And he was just like, Gerry, you got nothing to apologize about, nothing to worry about. he goes, man, if you were air defense or something like that, you'd be just fine. And, he really started explaining the way flooring worked and things like
Right.
that, talking to PJ Gross, my old
Yeah.
roommate. And again, it's like, man, you got nothing to apologize about. He goes, I know the kind of officer you are, and, it's nothing you need to worry about. So that's how I got out. And then I, got into quality, in North Carolina, manufacturing quality, and then eventually came back home to work for a company that was called Intercom at the time. And then that's where kind of looked at my wife and was like,
Yeah.
11 years, man, it's like, maybe we need to think about this reserve thing and, get to 20 and do get a retirement.
Yeah.
So I ended up going to Des Moines to the 3rd Corps Support Command, CONUS Augmentation. And I'm thinking, hey, big general officer headquarters, I'll never deploy,
Right.
no big deal. And sure enough, September 11th happens, and 5th Corps is on tap, and 3rd Corps Support Command is 5th Corps' COSCOM. So there we are. We get the kind of the VOCO in October, and then when they finally let us know we were going, we basically had 4 days in Des Moines, and then we were on a plane to Wiesbaden, and that was OIF-1. So no rotation schedule set or anything. So we spent 15 months there, and it was a month in Wiesbaden, and the rest of it was in Kuwait and Iraq. So,
and what was your role then?
So I was in the plan shop of the G3, and so within a sustainment organization, you've got the sport ops and then the G3, and it's kind of interesting. And being a combat arms guy, that was kind of new for me. But as we were getting ready to go and doing some of the planning stuff in Wiesbaden, I was the maneuver consultant to the COSCOM, and believe me, when they were doing plans and stuff like that, we ended up going to Vilsec, which is where I commanded. So that was kind of coming home. But we did a big sustainment level, core sustainment level rehearsal, and General Wojciechowski was the DCGS. And I'm trying to tell these guys, it's like, man, if you've not been through a maneuver rehearsal before, it's like, this is not going to be fun. And he's going to ask you a lot of what if questions. And if you don't have answers and you haven't thought through it, it's not going to go well for you. And just watching the way it happened and just kind of sitting back and going, tried to tell you, man.
Yeah.
And
any experiences stand out, just kind of unusual running into classmates or in that deployment?
Oh, yeah. So ran into Tom Donovan, who was an H2 guy, Mike Barbie, my roommate, junior year. That was another thing too, so with Mike and the 6.6 Cav and the deep strike on, late March, and having, getting to watch that, in the Corps main, and knowing that, my former roommate is leading one of those Apache squadrons, and having it not go very well, where those guys got pretty shot up. It was kind of a little tense in there. So
came back from that after 15 months, you said.
Yeah. So now I'm in the reserves, and hey, I want to I want to move up. I want to do what I need to do. So again, thinking like an active duty guy, where's my next branch qualifying job? So got to go be an S3 or an XO. So I applied for a XO job for a basic training battalion in Lincoln, Nebraska. Got that job, and eventually got promoted to lieutenant colonel and took command of that battalion.
There you go. And how was that experience being on the training side?
That was awesome. And again, not to bring it back down, but Mike Endress, we supported Mike Endress's battalion and got to go see him in action at Fort Sill. Great story. So I was there with my sergeant major. Obviously Mike is the active duty battalion commander with his sergeant major. Got a graduating class. a bunch of basic trainees getting ready to graduate, and they just had a blanket party for some kid the night before, and Mike had him in there, and we were all in there, and Mike was, hey, I need somebody to stand up and tell me what the hell happened. You're not going to graduate. We'll do whatever, and then, you guys figured out, me and the sergeant major, we're going to leave now. So we all went into this back room, and Mike looks over and he's like, can I even do that? It was hilarious. I was heartbroken when I heard about Mike and that bike ride. Jeez.
Unfortunate. What, So how did it work with, so when you were the commander at the time, was that a full-time job? You were up there?
No, and that's the thing. So, being a reservist, being a TPU, Troop Program Unit reservist, it's tough, and especially if you're doing tough jobs. I mean, it eventually becomes, a lot of additional work, and when you're in command, and the reserves at that time really got wrapped around the axle on individual deployment statistics, and one of those things for us where we're sitting there going, we should really be thinking about, collective training and making sure that the unit is operationally ready, and all this, these individual statistics, that's NCO business. Right. But, the reserves, know, and it's still that way. And I'm sure that Miyako or Lou Irwin or, any of those guys would tell you the same thing. But it's just like, you can choke the death out of these. Certainly something
kind of stress. You don't, unless you have been in that, right? You don't get that. That's a whole different world you're trying to contend with there. I get it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, the reserves still do not understand that they don't pay the bills. The civilian job pays the bills. And when they start worrying about retention and stuff like that, and why people don't stick around, especially, and I'll just tell you that since that time when I was battalion commander, there's this big problem at major and this big problem at staff sergeant. And it's like, how do you guys not figure out that those are the ranks that if somebody, doesn't make it past their first, tour, if you will,
it's like an inflection point that hits them both at that point, right?
Yeah, that's all those captains, kids who were officers, and it's like, this is just not worth my time. I'm just, I'm not going to put my civilian job at risk. So you've got all those captains that leave the force, and then you don't have, any majors.
Right. And then so all in 30 years of service. So how long did you take that reserve job, and what was the, what was it, 2016 you completed that work?
Yeah. So, I ended up, after battalion command, I went back to the Des Moines unit, and because my boss wanted me to go and to deploy with them, as still an Army officer, but obviously had a big time sustainment background at this point. I went and was the distribution management center chief, which is the big dog lieutenant colonel job in an ESC, and had a great experience. Dave Moreland was my boss there. Learned so much from him as a sustainer. Stu Werner was a major who worked for me, transporter, brilliant guy, and had a great experience. We had a great rotation. General Austin was initially General Odierno was the USFI commander, and then General Austin. So I had to brief him personally on the drawdown plan, because when we walked in, we went from 122 to 50,000. But had to brief him, and that was one of the things, I guess, regardless of your politics, certainly I think that Afghanistan departure was a little of a head scratcher. Yeah. And I guess for me, it's like, wow, come on, sir. I briefed you. We all know how this is done properly in terms of, getting stuff out of there and, incrementally bringing sustainment hubs down and things like that. So great experience. Did the War College.
Yeah, I saw that on your
War College during that deployment. So, first year distance education, not so bad. But during that deployment, 12, 13-hour days. And then my reward was staying in my office and doing whatever group project we were doing. But it was kind of cool because I could look at it in the morning And then if the thing was due by midnight, Eastern time, I was able to come in the following morning and look at it one more time and give, yeah, I think this looks good to go, and be the guy to push stuff in. And they were very, very understanding of what I was doing.
Right.
And so graduated from the War College June of 11, and then started working on brigade commands. So my first brigade command was in a mission command training brigade in Denver, Colorado. And that's one of those things too, is, you get to go to them. And certainly I was flying every month. So I did that first brigade command, had a great experience there, doing a lot, because just having come back from Iraq, 10, 11, and training sustainment staffs and things like that, and really pushing our staff when it came to the simulation and the injects and things like that, to make them very realistic, and then to be able to talk to them about containers and container management and some of that stuff. And it's like we can bring this whole thing, we could bring this whole exercise down with a fuel problem, because fuel is just outrageous. And how you have to stay on top of that forecasting and making sure that it's going to all the right places, and then how do you shift gears when something goes wrong.
Right.
So,
and did you have the battalion command and the brigade command, or did you have two brigades?
I had two brigades. And then so wow. I wanted to, had no idea if I was going to apply for the General Officer Board, and didn't want to sit there with no job. So I eventually applied for the Brigade Command Board again, and I got 89th Sustainment Brigade in Kansas City, Belton, Missouri, actually, but did that for a little under 2 years.
And so 2016, what was the decision to hang it up? Was it a time thing? Did you have to? What was the idea there?
Well, so here comes part two of why I appreciate the class. So I did apply for the General Officer Board and was selected, and took command of 451st Sustainment Command in Wichita, Kansas. My predecessor had decided to try to pull the 451st up in the deployment rotation. I was a brigade commander under him at that time, and I had didn't know that I was going to take the command. I didn't necessarily agree with that decision. But another thing people don't understand about reserve deployments, the UICs, the units are on rotation, but most of those units are not 100%.
Right.
So there's a whole lot of soldiers that are having to get volunteered and involuntarily transferred to these organizations. So, we're working on that. Also, we did our pre-deployment site survey, our leaders recon, if you will, to Iraq, to Kuwait at that time. So in November, I took a 12-person team over, and we got there on a Tuesday. Of my 12-person team, 6 people had real civilian jobs, and then 6 other people were either AGRs or sort of partially retired, or own their own business, right, or whatever. So it wasn't as strenuous. And then we got there on a Tuesday. On Thursday, we're in with 13th. First TSC and First Theater Sustainment Command. 4th Sustainment Command is augmenting them, and then we would have come in and been the augmentation for First TSC. So General Hurley is the First TSC commanding general. We were supposed to go up to Iraq to visit with the 82nd Airborne, up into Baghdad, and understand, because this is at this time, it's Inherent Resolve. It's all the stuff we're doing to fight ISIS, and obviously we're not doing that personally, but supporting the Iraqis, and a lot of sustainment hubs and stuff that are going on, and the 82nd's got the lead. And so we were supposed to go up to see them. So that morning, that Thursday morning, we got the weather brief, and basically it's going to be red air for the next 4 days, and you guys can get up there, but you're not going to get back out. And so I was the guy who signed the request to go, and felt like, and had been told a million times, it's like, hey, you guys are getting to see some stuff right now. I promise you, by the time you guys get here in April, it's going to be completely different. It's like, okay, so fine. I'm going to go ahead and cancel that because I do not want to miss the flight back
Right.
out. And, my name's on the request. Did not ask for permission from the 2-star Hurley to do that. And needless to say, the Army Reserve is very risk averse when it comes to pissing off the active duty. And Hurley was not happy, and Schwartz got relieved.
Okay.
So, yep. So cancel the trip. I mean, that's what I did.
Yeah.
And so we've lost confidence in your decision making ability. Okay, and so now you get to go through all the legal stuff, and so at this point, reaching out to my all my H2 classmates, but I'll tell you, Kristen French was just absolutely amazing, working me through lawyers and stuff like that, and just how things all went. Eventually, grade determination board, and had a great lawyer, but eventually didn't go my way, and so I retired as an 06.
Okay.
So that's what drove me to get out.
That brought it to a close. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, but one thing I will say, Paul, is I'm a pretty Catholic guy, and I feel like it's all definitely in the plan. It turns out that our older son went through something his junior year of college that he needed me to be there for, and if I'm racing around doing whatever general officer job in the reserves, I would not have been there for him. My wife got her degree and became the director of the Papillion Community Foundation here in town, and was running all the events, and pretty awesome job for her. And she never would have thought to do that if I was still doing what I was doing. So it's a case of hey, I get it, and I get that that you needed to send me a strong message so that I left and other things were able to happen.
Well, there's one thing that comes out in this podcast for all of us, is that we all have ups and downs. I mean, there's just none of us are immune from it. And so, but in the end, the path is there, right? So, yeah, I mean, that's the only perspective. Well, given the amazing run you've had, if you were to look back and reach back into a younger Gerry Schwartz, what advice would you give yourself?
Just based on mentoring and stuff like that. Try to be a little less hard on your peers. I mean, Scott Marcy in Second Cav was like, you're very respectful of us, and your soldiers love you, but man, you're hard on your peers.
Yeah, right.
So probably that, and then I guess just when it comes to that decision as a GO, I wouldn't have made it any differently. Given the circumstances, given the information the way I was given it, I would have made that decision every time. And I told people, plenty of times, it's like, I'm not worried about the next rank. I'm not worried about the next job. I'm going to do what I think's best for the unit and what's best for soldiers. And I got to be able to look myself in the mirror. I got to be able to look at my wife and our boys, and those are the only people that matter. And I don't have any regrets, but I guess just try to be a little bit, and then just again from a Christian perspective, try to be a little less tough on peers, and trying to maybe move people along in a nicer way, and help out a little bit, as opposed to what the hell's wrong with you.
Yeah.
So
fair enough. Yourself, what you're in quality assurance, and it looks like you're still banging away there. What's your plan for knocking off?
So I finally, it's one of the things is, I still wanted to make sure that I was trying to do something for service members. And I finally got into the contracting world. So, worked for a company called Executive Airborne Solutions. I don't know if you know the E4B, the Doomsday Plane, if you will, which is basically the National Nuclear Command Post. It's the sister aircraft of VC-25 Air Force One. So our company was started by John Norris, who was one of the senior NCOs on that aircraft, and 90% of these guys are former crewmen on that aircraft. And there's nobody smarter on the Mission Command electronics in the back of that aircraft. And so we have a joint venture with a couple other companies always one of those aircraft that's going in depot maintenance, and then one comes out, and then that's when we do all the installs, and there's 2 on operational status at any time. I was responsible for putting in an aviation quality system, and we just got that done in July. And now I continue to maintain that system, and then using the black belt skills. Hey, how can we make it better and get things done a little bit more efficiently, and make sure that the organization is the way it needs to be. No, I mean, the only thing, we did talk about the boys, and I'm so proud, and it's one of those things. Nothing overt, but covertly, it's like, hey, if you thought you got rid of me, there's 2 of my little mini-me's that are now running around. And I'll tell you, Travis Schwartz is a ball of fire. There's no doubt about that. I mean, he definitely, all I've ever told him is don't have an opinion, have an informed opinion. Yeah. And he's definitely taken that to heart. And, so far working out for him, because like I said, he's definitely making a name for himself just by caring. The cyber basic course is very technical, and we left Fort Knox with the schoolhouse tank platoon SOP and did a whole bunch of tactical stuff. Those guys didn't do hardly anything, and he's like, Dad, gosh, how do I handle this? And it's like, hey, dude, the leadership stuff you got, it's just like, just start working on stuff, use your NCOs, put an SOP together, reach out on some collaboration page or something like that with your fellow electronic warfare platoon leaders to say, hey, here's how I did this. How are you guys doing this? And, and you're going to make some money, and obviously you're going to collaborate. And certainly, I think he's pretty well respected, and being in the 18th Airborne Corps doesn't hurt. Right. So
that's great. Jerry, thanks so much for coming on. It was fantastic talking to you today.
Paul, I'm glad that I was able to do this. As you said up front, getting to meet somebody that or spend some time with somebody that you really didn't spend a lot of time with at school or at reunions or whatever. Glad to finally spend some time with you. I
enjoyed it. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Courage Never Quits podcast, where any member of the class of 1986 who is willing to tell their story will be a guest. To get the word out and to stay up to date on the latest episodes, hit the like and subscribe buttons. With 954 living graduates in the class, we have a lot of stories to collect, and you don't want to miss any of them. We'll see you in the next episode.